Hi there, this is Loguidice of Armchair Arcade. Today I'll be taking a look at both the Sega Arcade Classic wireless game console and the Sega Arcade Ultimate Portable Handheld Player from AtGames. As a bonus, I'll also be taking a look at the new version of the classic Sega 6-button gamepad, which will be available around the same time as these new systems, and works with the Arcade Classic, as well as all the original Sega Genesis, Mega Drive, and other classic systems that are PIN compatible. First, let's take a look at what comes in the box with the Sega Arcade Classic console. The console itself is small and light, not much bigger than the tiny size of the original 6-button controller. I appreciate the styling because it looks like an update of the original Genesis styling. It has a port for the included AC adapter and an AV cable that does composite video and mono audio. Stereo would have been nice, perhaps in the next version. Note the two controller ports. These are optional because there's a big old infrared sensor between them. You get two wireless controllers. Unfortunately, because they're infrared, they require line of sight. But on the plus side, I didn't notice any lag when using them. Annoyingly, the controllers use two AAA batteries each, which are not included. For compliance reasons, the battery covers have tiny screws on them. Luckily, once you open the battery cover up, it can stay in place under its own power if you so choose, so you can store the screws elsewhere. The included instruction manual is serviceable and gives you the basics of play for each game. There's also a small flyer that gives the link to AtGames' website for accessories, and also a promotion for the Atari Flashback 4, which I talk about in another video. Check that one out. Now, let's take a look at what comes in the box with the Sega Arcade Ultimate Portable Handheld. You get the handheld, of course. It has the full complement of controls that a 6-button Sega controller has. It also has an SD card slot, so you can put your own ROMs on an SD card of your choice and go to town. Its built-in rechargeable battery is charged with the standard USB cable, which is included. The included instruction manual is similar to the one for the console, serviceable with the basics of play for each game. The same small flyer as with the console is also included. Nothing different there. What's not included, unfortunately, is the AV cable that comes with the console version, even though it supports the same TV output. That's an easy buy, and you may already have a compatible cable lying around, but it still would have been nice to have it included in the box, even if it drove the price up just a bit. I'm sure you'd like to know how these both work. Well, the good news is that they're both powered by the same emulation engine. Unlike past attempts at these Sega Mega Drive and Genesis clones, these are amazingly accurate and use the latest version of the FireCore emulation engine that's been around for years. Everything I was able to throw at these systems, they were able to play just like an original system, with two notable exceptions. The console had trouble with running homebrew cartridges. This is of course not a big deal unless you collect homebrew cartridges, and frankly, if you're that into the Genesis and Mega Drive scene, you probably already have the original hardware set up anyway. The other is that the handheld, while supporting loading of your own ROMs, does not have save game support when a game originally used battery backup. Frankly, since everything else is already nailed, I can see both these features being improved for future hardware, assuming these two systems are the success that they really deserve to be. The built-in game selection for both units is impressive, with a nice selection of Sega originals on the console, and a mix of Sega and 3 Capcom games on the handheld. Again, the differences probably come down to licensing. While 80 built-in games is undeniably impressive, what's not as impressive are the 40 off-brand games, which are broken up into 20 arcade-style games and 20 brain games. These are all like bad knockoffs of more popular games and would struggle to distinguish themselves on 8-bit systems, let alone a 16-bit system like this is emulating. Luckily, with the 40 included authentic games and the ability to add your own, either on cartridge or via ROM on an SD card, it's a non-issue. That's of course not to say that there's not some fun to be had with a few of the knockoff games. For instance, my oldest daughter enjoys the Bomberman knockoff, but then again, she is a Bomberman junkie. As for the hardware, let's first take a look at the Sega Arcade Classic console. It does not have an SD card slot, so you'll be sticking with cartridges on this one, either Genesis or Mega Drive. Most of the homebrews I tried had issues or didn't work at all, but all the original Genesis cartridges, even ones from different eras, worked without a glitch. Unless you're specifically looking for differences between this and the original hardware when it comes to running games, you won't find any. Supposedly, something called the FireCore Passport, which is an SD card adapter and a cartridge, works with this console, so you can load ROMs via that method if you were so motivated. But I haven't seen references to that since 2009. So if that's your goal, it's probably more cost effective just to get the handheld, especially considering the low price, and getting both is certainly an option because of that. If for whatever reason you don't like the infrared versions of the controllers, a wired 6-button controller is available separately. It feels and works great, and is a great option for both this system and your classic hardware. Naturally, your old controllers will work just fine on this as well, and in fact you can mix and match at will and even use wired and wireless controllers on the same port, creating ad hoc multiplayer games where there was only a single player option before. You could do this by simply having one person control, say, the movement on a wireless controller, while the other controls the action buttons on a wired controller.
Rise from your grave. Test 1, 2. Sega.
Let's take a look at the Sega Arcade Ultimate Portable Handheld. The Sega Arcade Portable Handheld has a 2.8-inch LCD screen. Not the biggest, but it has a nice brightness, contrast, and viewing angles, and no noticeable blur, something that fans of the Sega Nomad would appreciate. Sound from the internal speakers is a bit tinny, but that's minimized over headphones or when using the TV out. The D-pad and buttons work great. I found them to be very comfortable and responsive, so again, no issues where it counts. The SD card slot worked great as well. I just threw a ROM Aladdin on an SD card I had lying around and loaded up from the menu. After a short load, it started up just like any other game. Adding more ROMs to have a whole library on an SD card is just as easy. Just stick an SD card in your PC, copy the ROMs over, then stick it back into your portable. Good stuff. Both my daughters, who are 7 and 5 respectively, actually really enjoy playing on it, even though they have access to 3DSs, DSs, iPhones, and iPads, among all the other things vying for their attention. So classics still work, and this is, you know, a good inexpensive option for kids.
England. Level 1, fight.
Anyway, both options, both units, should be available at major retailers everywhere here in the US later in the year, and they'll surely be part of holiday promotions, so keep an eye out for both of them and the controller. The suggested retail price for each of the systems is amazingly only $40, so it wouldn't be unreasonable to get both. Do I recommend these? Absolutely, because this kind of care taken with our classic gaming heritage should always be rewarded. This is officially licensed and it works great, so definitely check it out if you're interested. I welcome your comments, feedback, and questions, so send them my way. Until next time, this was Bill Loguidice for Armchair Arcade.